Hey everybody, it's Frisco Kinos. I hope you're doing well. So today we're going to talk about the podcast project. And I sent you some information this morning to help me pair you guys off. So please respond to that discussion where you say that, the topic that you want to work on, or if you already know someone you want to work with, I'm going to pair you guys up no matter what tomorrow. So I'll try to do the best I can to match you with someone. But if I don't, you're going to work with someone else in the class, and I'm sure that'll be fine. And that's part of it too, is to be able to present on a team kind of basis and share the responsibility and communicate with each other before you communicate with your target audience. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast. I'm going to show you my screen, and we'll take a look at our old presentation friend here, PowerPoint. And I'm going to go to the slideshow mode here and talk a little bit about podcasting. I have my captions on here for anybody who needs it. So what is a podcast? And I would, ask you guys to answer the question in the class, but it's a digital audio file that is available on the internet to download to a desktop or a mobile device. Typically, it's available in a series of installments that a receiver would subscribe to. So you'd use like Apple or Google to subscribe to the podcast, and you'd always be informed when the latest episode comes out. And then you could, download it to your device, or it would automatically download to your device. So it's certainly a very convenient kind of channel of delivery for listening. And why podcasts? Well, I said it was convenient. It's also convenient for the listener, right? So you could listen to a podcast while you're driving, while you're working out, while you're making dinner. You don't really have to give it your full attention. Obviously you want to not multitask while you're really listening to it, but you can listen to all kinds of different podcasts. There are so many different ones out there today. So real niche kind of marketing. It can be very engaging. Obviously, if it's something that you're really interested in, like if you're really interested in cooking, and you're listening to a great chef talk about a recipe, you're going to be engaged. Obviously in marketing, that chef may be getting, his equipment from a company or his ingredients from a company. So the idea of some kind of product placement in the podcast, or he may be marketing his own services. Here's a podcast. Let me come to your house and be your personal chef. So there's lots of different, kind of inroads to using your podcast to market and advertise your services and skills and products. You can also use it to generate leads. So you might have a call to action in the podcast where people would then, go to a website, fill out a form, and then you'd have information about them then to follow up. Another thing that you could use your podcast for is show your expertise. So maybe you do a podcast on social media marketing and you put it on your LinkedIn site, and you get people who are coming to you now as a content expert and asking you to help them with their business and paying you to do that. So you can monetize your podcast in lots of different ways. So what I want you guys to do is pick a topic for your podcast, and it should be something, like I said, endless amount of topics available, but you're going to work together with a partner, so it's got to be something that you kind of agree on. It should be something that you're passionate about, so you're really an expert in, and you can really be energetic and kind of really show how passionate you are about the thing you're talking about in the podcast. And it should have some kind of marketing goal too. So some type of call to action that would drive people to the next step, whether it's visit your website, go on your email list, whatever you have, you can build that in the podcast as a kind of intro, outro part of the structure of your podcast. Podcasts are searchable. So, let's say you want to do a podcast on makeup. You should search for some podcasts that are already doing podcasts on makeup and see what they're doing and how you're going to make your podcast unique. And this is the way that, just like any kind of Google search, you're going to find things by using keywords. So whatever you name your podcast, whatever you use for the description of your podcast, if you're Joe Rogan, it might be the author of the podcast. that is really going to attract, people through a search like Apple or Google kind of search for the actual podcast. Okay. The next thing is the format. So typically what I'm asking you guys to do here as a team would be one of two formats. It could be just both of you kind of having a conversation, which seems extemporaneous, where you're just kind of chatting about the topic, and it could be secretly scripted in the background. It could also be a kind of interview where one person asks the other person questions. So that's another kind of structure that'll work really well in a team kind of format. So you guys decide which one you think works the best for you, just a straight conversation or a question answer kind of interview podcast. So I looked at some research and I found that most podcasts that are really popular around this length of 20 to 30 minutes. Some technical ones can go hours long. Other ones might be short. What I want you guys to do is an approximate 5 to 7 minute podcast. It can't even be shorter. So, script it, plan it, keep it tight. We're planning it more like this is going to be your pilot episode. Subsequent episodes might be longer, but the idea is that you want to kind of give people the scope of, the whole podcast series, what they might be learning in your social media podcast in the long term. So it doesn't have to be that long, to really kind of hook people. Equipment wise. So, you can use a, laptop, to do it with a built-in laptop microphone. You can use your phone. I'm going to be publishing a video for you where I use my phone to, you can use voice memo, or you can download various free software, that will allow you to record, edit, and upload your podcast. You can also work in a professional recording studio here at FIT. You're not required to as an online class, but you can, if you want, contact our technician, who is Michelle Peck, and I'll give you some information about her later. The next slide actually is about microphones. So you want to get the best quality from your podcast, and different microphones record in different ways. Most microphones that we use for audio-video production would record in this way. So the idea is that the microphone has a heart-shaped pattern. See this kind of heart-shaped pattern going on here? It's not that heart-shaped, but the idea is that it picks up really well in the front, it falls off at both sides, and it really falls off in the back. So the idea is you want to be pointed right at the sound source. And the advantage of this is that it focuses on you speaking, and it discounts other sounds like the noise of the fan in the background, or your dishwasher, or your mom cooking dinner, or whatever else is going on. And obviously you want to try to discount those sounds as much as possible in your recording space. So lock up the dog, tell your mom to stop cooking, turn the dishwasher off, turn your phone off, and set up like that before you actually record your podcast. There are other techniques like working the microphone. So for instance, right now I'm using a microphone and I'm about 6 inches from it. Watch what happens, or listen what happens as I get closer to the microphone. Now I'm about 3 inches from the microphone, and now I'm right on top of the microphone. So you can see, or you can hear the difference when I'm really close to the microphone. This is called the proximity effect, and it's much more intimate. You get a lot more kind of richer tones, bass response, but there are some problems with it in that I could pop my P's, these are called plosives, or I could make a kind of scratchy sound when I make S's, like I'm going with Sally to the circus, and you get those sibilant sounds. So those are more apparent when you're closer to the mic. The other thing you can do is go off axis. So now I'm pointing the mic right at me, and as I start to turn the mic, now the mic is at 90 degrees, and now the mic is at 180 degrees. So you should be able to hear the difference, how that changes the kind of experience for the listener. And obviously it's better when I'm on axis. So one way to really see this or hear it again is to make a test recording, where you make a test recording of yourself, and then you kind of get an idea of what the best placement distance from the microphone is. Your space is important too. A recording studio has isolation, so it's soundproofed. It also has treatment, like this stuff up here, which keeps the sound from bouncing all around, so you're only hearing the direct sound. whereas in a lively room, the sound is bouncing all over the place and you get these kind of weird echoes. So what can help you with this? Well, maybe you're in a room with a rug on the floor or curtains. Those things will help absorb the sound. Furniture. Even if you're recording on your laptop, just put a towel down on the table, and that will help absorb some of the sound that's bouncing off the table. It'll make you sound better. Okay, here's Michela's information. Michela Peck. That's a P there. I don't like underlines. You can see how I don't like underlines. It may make the P look like an O. But there's her room number. It's in the A building. And these are the times that she's available. If you want to, remember it's not required, but if you want to record your podcast with her and you and your team member are available during one of these times, please let her know as soon as possible and book the time. We have 3 other classes that are working this too, so you want to make sure that you get in early. It's first come, first serve. Okay, as I said, you can also use your phone, and I'll be making a subsequent video for you to see how that works. And you can actually just record. You can use your phone as a kind of microphone and record to your voice memo and then download that to GarageBand. If you're working with your partner, you could have 2 phones. So, you know, each of you are speaking into your own phone and you download 2 separate audio files. The other way to do this, actually, which I'm going to make you a quick video soon, is to use Zoom. So basically you are using a Zoom meeting and then you're extracting the audio when you record it from that Zoom meeting, and now you have both of the audio tracks there. So Zoom actually has a provision for this, and it's really just made for podcasters. Later on, you'll also be doing a kind of resume job interview through Zoom with your partner. So we'll be using it again. And here's a digital audio workstation. If you have a Mac, you have GarageBand installed. If you don't have a Mac, there's no worries. I put a couple of links up for PC compatible versions of this that you can use online. But GarageBand is really easy to use, yet very, very powerful, and it will allow you to already record your jingle and your podcast on there. So the next thing you want to do then is bring those files into GarageBand and edit them, and think of some kind of scripted kind of structure. So you're going to have, you know, a musical opening, and then you're going to have a call to action, some kind of segue from one segment to another, maybe a sound effect. You know, so the idea is to make sure that the sound is clean. The 2 microphones sound the same, even though they might be recorded by different devices. You want to equalize them, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And also clean up the mistakes. So there may be pauses or, you know, mistakes that you make that you can then cut out and edit out of the final cut. Okay, we're also going to talk a little bit about then uploading that podcast to a host and getting it listened to. So one of the ways to present it is to put it up on iTunes or Google and have an accompanying thumbnail that will attract visually. So I put up 2 thumbnail examples here for a podcast, and one of them is kind of sloppy, but the other one I think looks pretty cool, right? The Cupcake podcast. And what I want you to do is look at these sites here. So Buzzsprout and SoundCloud, and also I'll add Podbean in there. They all have free accounts that will allow you to upload your music to or your podcast, and then send links to your audience. Okay, so that is our PowerPoint. Let's take a look at GarageBand. So here is GarageBand, and if you don't know, it looks like this on your dock. And if you don't see it, you can obviously search for it. Let me show you from scratch, actually. So what I'm going to do is quit GarageBand totally, just so you can see how this works. And then here it is. Let's go down here and launch GarageBand. Okay, so a digital audio workstation, which means we're going to get sound into it. We're going to shape and edit that sound. And then we're going to get sound exported out of it. I'm just going to pause this for a second. Sorry about that little interruption, but we're back here and we're going into our pal GarageBand. I've got a recording here, I guess that was made already. but we're going to make a new recording, right? So what I'm going to do is go to New, File New, and create a new empty project for my podcast sample. And what you might want to do at this point is check out your microphone situation. So go to your Apple menu, System Preferences, and you want to go to the sound icon speaker here. And you should see all available input and output devices here. And you want to make sure that you let the system know which device you want to choose. So I have my internal microphone, and then I have this Samsung USB mic, which I want to use. So I make sure that I choose the right microphone in input, and output you can use your headphones or you can use your speakers. Let's go back to the input. Here is the level that I can set on the microphone, and I usually set it up pretty much all the way to the top. You can also change this a little bit more in GarageBand itself. So once you have that set, then go to GarageBand menu and choose the preferences. And again, you should see a audio MIDI kind of speaker there. And this is where, again, you're going to be able to see your various input devices. So we're going to go again with the Samsung microphone here, and that should do it for us, actually. So now what you want to do is I'm going to make a recording that is going to use this microphone. So let's click on the microphone one. You might have used this one if you watched my video on how to create your theme music. So let's go to Create. And here we are in the open timeline of GarageBand. It's an audio program, but it also can work with video. So a lot of these conventions are going to be similar in programs like Final Cut Pro and Premiere. You have a playhead that's going to move along as you are kind of listening or watching your project in real time. You also have a counter kind of thing here that will measure in beats, but for our purposes, we're going to change it to time. We're not recording a musical score, we're recording more of a show, so we're going to leave it in the time frame here, which will give us minutes and seconds. And that'll also let you know that you want to be under 5 minutes, right, or 5 to 7 minutes. You have a count-in that'll give you a 1, 2, 3, 4 count-in. I like that. The metronome just clicks away for musicians, so you don't want that clicking in the background. You probably want to turn that off. Okay, you'll notice as I'm speaking, I can also see my level over here. And this is actually the monitor level. When you're playing back, this down here is the record level. Okay, so you want to make sure, again, that you are kind of modulating this so that you're not in the red. See, here I am in the red, and it probably sounds distorted when I do that. I don't want to be in the red. I want to be most of the time just where the yellow part of it is lighting, when it's kind of peaking is what we call it, right? And you can see how it peaks, and it leaves a little peak sign there. To let you know that that is the peak level. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to stop the recording one more time. Hi, Matthew. How are you? Yeah, absolutely. Hang on one second. I just have to stop something here that I'm making a little recording. I should have edited that out, but sorry, I'm a little pressed for time, so I'm going to just go back into GarageBand for you here. And so we were leaving off with actually making the recording. So what you want to do now is, quiet the room. A lot of times a good thing to do is say stand by before you're about to go on mic. But you could also, I'll show you, edit out any flubs or, mistakes kind of. So you have the transport keys up here, typical, rewind, fast forward, stop, play. And this is the record key. So let's try it. Am I on? Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mike Kokinos. Okay, so you got the idea there, right? And you can see these waveforms. So this is where I said, am I on? And here's hi, so we can use the playhead now to just go back and run through this. Am I on? Hi, and welcome to the podcast. So the trick about editing is typically to use what's called like a guillotine splice, where you just cut it, right? So you can see right away that I can, cut this out in various ways. I can cut it out here. I can cut it out here. I can cut it out right there too. And you can also zoom in. So if you want to see this in really larger size, you can see how much more I can cut out. And, I can obviously change the pace and make it one of those kind of YouTube-esque approaches where there's really no pauses. Sounds like I drank too much coffee or something like that, right? So anyway, where I am, I'm just going to zoom back in so you can just see the other part of the clip. Right now, I'm going to hold down the Command key and hit T. And what that's going to do is my guillotine split there. So now I've got the opening part, right? That says, am I on?
Am I on?
And I'm just going to, with that selected, you can see it up here, hit delete. So now that is gone. And now this I can obviously move around. And if I had more clips, I could change the order, kind of move them around. So I might want to have, like, if I had, my partner, it might be something like question, answer, something like that for the structure of the podcast, right? So let me just show you something real quick here. What I want to do now is move this guy over, kind of out of the way. And I'm going to go over here now to the loop browser. And got all kinds of loops installed. You may not have as many, but you can make sure that you download all the free ones from Apple. And there's all kinds of great ways to search these through. Again, if you watched my video when you were creating your theme music, you are familiar with these. So you can search for various instruments, you can search for genres, you can put in a descriptor word like upbeat or mellow or something like that. So I'm just going to grab a preconceived clip here that will work. How about this Wonderland pizzicato strings? Okay, kind of has a nice opening ring to it, right, for my podcast. So I'm just going to bring this in and it automatically will create a new track for me. Okay, and you'll see the waveform of this is there, and I can play it up here. Oops, sorry. Like that. Back to GarageBand. Sorry about that. So the space bar will allow you to play through.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast.
So you can see how those things are superimposed on each other now. And I may not want them to be superimposed. There are some other interesting things over here that you can do where you can just turn one of them off. So now I won't hear
I'm Mike Kokinos.
the music. So if you wanted to kind of isolate something to work on it or just hear it without that, I can also adjust the levels, right? So I can adjust the levels this way for the music, but I'm going to show you a more advanced way to actually do a automated mix. So what you want to do is go in on your music here. And, typically what I probably want to happen is that the music would start loud and then at some point start to fade under where my voice comes in and then eventually go all the way out. So let's try to set up that structure. So let's say right there I want my voice to come in. It's kind of like we heard that one kind of bar there. So I'm going to click on the clip here and then go to Mix, Show Automation. And what that's going to do is give me a volume bar. Okay, so this volume bar will allow me to change the levels. Right, you can see I can make it louder and lower.
Hi.
But what I really want to do is I want to change the level over time. And anytime you want to do something over time, typically in media, like an animation, you're using what are called keyframes. So the way to set up a keyframe in GarageBand is by using the command button and to click on that volume bar. So let me just show you here. That's going to work. I'm going to make, you have to have 2 keyframes for anything to happen at all. So I'll make 2 of them. And you can see now I can use this one to fade down. Okay, so I'll fade the audio down. And I can kind of drag it where I want it to be. So there's my bed. And now let's bring this guy up against it. So you can see as soon as it fades under like that, you'll hear my voice. Now let's see what that's going to sound like.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mike Kokinos.
Okay, and obviously you might have more there, and then I can actually mix back up again. So after I say my last word, I can punctuate the mix by bringing the audio back up. Right, so I'll do another keyframe here, and yet another, and then I'll do another fade up here. So that'll kind of go back up to a louder volume. That'll be my outro. And of course, you can add all kinds of other things in there, but let's just give this one more quick listen.
Hi, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mike Kokinos.
So you see how that works, right? You got to obviously play around with this. It's going to be a little bit time consuming, but it should be fun, where you're, listening to both you and your partner and adding some music or sound effects from the loop library here. There are lots more things I could show you, but I don't want to make this too much longer. Let me just go to the actual output now. What you want to do is go to share. If you have an older version of GarageBand, it might be in File Share. But if you go to Share here, you can share it to your iTunes library. You can go directly to SoundCloud. One of the reasons why I want you to create a SoundCloud account. You could also, and this is actually what I think is the best way to do it, export to disk. Okay, so we're going to export to disk. And this will allow us to make a MP3 file, which is compatible with other software like Premiere and Final Cut, so that if I want to use this music in another piece of software, I can actually do that. So right now my machine is beach balling, but here we go. So I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call it Pod 1, and I'm going to save it. You'll save it where you want to save it, but this is the file you're going to upload for me, and you can actually upload it to Buzzsprout when you're done, or SoundCloud or Podbean, and then send me the link instead of actually uploading the audio file. I'd rather have the link. So what we're going to do now is just save this on the desktop, and then I always pick the highest quality audio files, so not as big as video files, and then I'm going to go with MP3. Okay, so now click Export. GarageBand will run through it for you, and it's done. Piece of cake, right? I'm just going to minimize this, and somewhere on my messy desktop there is a file floating around now that's called Pod. I don't see it, but I could search it, I guess. In any event, I'm not sure why I can't find it, but it is there somewhere on my desktop. You'll bear with me. Let me show you one more thing. I know we're getting a little bit long here. You don't have to watch this whole thing at once, but I'm going to show you what's in the folder for this week. So I'm going to our Blackboard class, content. Actually, this is my other class, but I'll make the same folder for you guys. So if you go into the content section, you'll see podcast week 4. And what you want to do then is, here's Buzzsprout, which gives you a step-by-step guide in creating the podcast. Very useful. There's a scripting template here. Here's a way to create the artwork for your podcast that you can upload then to Buzzsprout. I usually use Canva for this, but it tells you the resolution that you want for the thumbnail. And then here's what we just did in GarageBand, kind of exercise there to get you through getting in, getting out with your sounds. Here's where you're going to put your link, right? Don't upload the audio file, just the link. Here's another script sample, and then this is the brief. So this is actually the first thing that you should actually look at. And take a look at it here real quick. I promise it'll be the last thing we do. So what I want you to do then is, with your partner, run through the brief and answer the questions. So what is the title of your podcast? Who's your target? All those kind of things that we've been doing for the other briefs. Every project pretty much has a brief to guide you through the pre-production plan. And you don't have to worry about this where it says create a promo. You don't have to do that. Just let's do the actual podcast. That's all we're really worried about. So you're going to download this, and then please both people upload it again. So even though you are a team, I want you to individually upload both assignments, so the brief and the podcast. Okay, so hopefully that was a fun and descriptive lecture. I got it under 30 minutes, and let me know if you guys have any questions that we can address, and have fun creating your podcast. Don't forget to do the discussion, because that will allow me to create the teams too. You'll see the teams. I'll give you the link, and you'll see everybody's name and email address so that you can confer with your team or your partner. Actually, it's just teams of 2. Okay, have a great weekend.